want a raise. And now you got to come to this guy trying to get it. I'm going to give you some tips today to better understand your business and the way your business makes money, so that when you go to pitch your boss, you actually understand how to make a really rock solid case on how to get a raise, or potentially not to put your foot in your mouth if you ask for a raise when you don't understand how the business itself actually works. Number one, you got to know how your company makes money. And you should be able to ask that. Ask things like, well, what's our typical margin on a project? That might make some finance people upset, but actually smart finance people want you to understand how the business actually works, because then you'll think differently about so many things in the business. So I think most smart ones will be happy that you're asking that question, not mad. And you also have to have transparency in your company around contract amounts. You have to be willing to share that with your team. If you're not, or if you're in a position where your company is not very transparent about those things, then they're really not arming you with the information you need to really understand how they make money, which is important. Because as I mentioned in my other video on the distance, when I talk about the distance, I always say that you have all this information. You got all the contract amounts, you know how much you make per project, you know your margin, you know your SG&A. So therefore you might say to your team member, hey, I need you to take on this 8th project for us. And they're going, man, I'm overloaded. But that's because you have all the information and they don't have the information to understand why they need to take on that 8th project. So you actually empower your team when you share that information with them. However, I get it. If you're trying to ask for a raise, not every company is going to be as transparent as ours is at Seer. So what you can always do, Excel and Google are your friends. Google things like average marketing agency margin. You'll find some great stuff on Quora there. You can ask questions like average SG&A, which I'll get to in a second. And then just build an Excel sheet and give it to your boss and say something that understands where they're coming from. They may not be able to share that information. So say, hey, I know that you can't give me our margin and those things. But what I did is I went out to the web and did the best that I could to find out what typical SG&As are like, what typical margins are like, and I put them in this spreadsheet and highlighted the 3 areas that you're gonna have to adjust based off of whether or not those are accurate or not. And then that'll help you to sit down with me later and walk me through something that articulates how this company actually makes money. So even if your boss doesn't give you this, don't just be like, well, they're assholes. Instead, if you want to stay at the company you're at and just try to make a little bit more, maybe you've got to give your boss a template that they can kind of fill in and go, oh yeah, you know what, things are a little bit off, even if they can't give you all the information. So this is mostly for people that are billable. You could be an internal agency, which I know a lot of in-house folks might be. You could be an external, third-party agency, but this is all for billable people. This is not for, overhead and sales administration, things like that. So I'm just gonna use some basic numbers here for easy math. Let's say that you make $50,000 a year, okay? So the first thing you need to recognize is when you make $50,000, there's this little thing called SG&A, and I just Googled it. It stands for Selling, General, and Administrative, SG&A, okay? And these are all the things that basically are around the business on top of your salary that are how you administer the business, things like rent, how you sell, SG&A, okay? So we just made up a number of 30%, but it looks like that can be, for like pharmaceutical type companies, it can be as high as almost 50%. And for like manufacturers, it can be as low as like 12 to 14%. Just Google this stuff, you'll find it. That's what I just did a second ago. So realize that when you make $50,000 a year, your cost to your company, if you're at a 30% SG&A, is $65,000. 30% times 50, $65,000. That's important, because if you go to your boss and say, well, I make 50 and the company makes this much, your boss is gonna say, so we don't pay for rent, we don't pay for 401ks, we don't pay for healthcare, right? They're just gonna shoot your argument, and then you're gonna feel like, damn it, I missed an opportunity to really show my boss or my manager that I understand this business and I understand the impact I'm having on it. So that's important. All right, so first month at the company, You're super stoked to be there. We're stoked to have you. Guess what? We ain't making no money. Your first month, you're probably training. So in the first month that you work at a company, you've got 0 clients. Unless, you know, some companies are really good at training, onboard you super fast, you start getting clients. But this is not about my case, it's about you understanding your business dynamics. So, month 1 here, you just cost me $5,400 because that's 65 divided by 12. So I just lost $5,000 for you being here. Laptops had to be bought, chairs had to be bought, desks had to be bought, you had to be paid. So first month we make nothing. Let's say we're onboarding you pretty fast, and in month 2, you actually come on board and you pick up a client for, let's say $50,000 to keep the numbers kind of easy. So now you have to understand, so if you got 1 client at $50,000, in theory, if you got 3 more, you could say, I'm working on $200,000 worth of business and I'm only being paid $50,000. Bullshit. No. A company, when they charge $50,000 for their services, usually doesn't make $50,000 on that. There's usually a margin on that they're making. The rest of it gets paid out in your salary and whatnot, right? So let's just say that's 20% margin. Google it for your industry. I'm just making it up. But if at 20%, that means that this $50,000, actually, when you close a $50,000 deal, it actually only nets the company $10K. And if you're in the kind of business where we have to re-earn our clients' money every month that they're with us, guess what? We don't get paid the whole $10,000 right here. We get paid 1/12 of 10,000 or whatever, which is like $800. So month 2, you get paid your $5,400, right? Awesome. Well, you don't get paid. You get paid this. It cost me $5,400 to have you there. Okay. So that's $800 for we got that month for your first client. Awesome. Good work. But let's do the math here. 5,400 minus 800. You ain't break even for me just yet. I'm actually now still losing money. So now it's better than losing $5,400 a month, but I'm losing $4,800 in your second month. So now in total, I've lost over $10,000, and I would consider that to be an investment. I've invested $10,000 in your in you being here that we have not recouped yet. So that's my outlay of cash. Here's the inlay that you've brought in. So let's say you sign on for another client, and they also pay us $50,000 a month. Or not $50,000 a month, $50,000 a year. So in month 3, we've now given you 2 clients, each that are worth $50,000 to the company in total contract size. But because we make 20%, let's just say, on each client, then we actually made, you know, on that $100,000 in sales, we're only going to make a fraction of that, and then we have to earn it every month that goes on. So now in month 3, you're still costing the business $5,400 a month, but now you're bringing into the company $1,600 a month. So that is $3,800 I'm at now, right? But I'm still at a negative. This is how you have to understand how your business makes money, because when you start asking for a raise, you might have to realize a few other things. So I'm going to fill in the rest of this with some other scenarios and be right back. So now I'm starting to make money though. That's a good thing. Let's flip back over. So in your 5th month, both your clients are zooming, made another $600. Sweet. All that's helping to defray this big $14,000 loss. This is the way that your boss or your manager or your finance team is going to look at this. Then month 6. Let's say you upsell a client and you found a way to squeeze 2 more hours a month or another 5 hours a month or whatever your billable rates are. But they're willing to pay us in profit an extra $200 more a month that we can make. You just done a great job. So now you're starting to prove your value, you're upselling. So now the company makes $800 on you per month. And we're kind of going along, and then the bad happens. Client's not happy. They're leaving. This happens. Don't cry. But what you should realize when that happens is now the company is just breaking even on you. You know, and if they want to grow and they want to continue to fund the things they want to fund, they don't want to break even on every employee. So this is not a great place to be. So you kind of feel, you should feel like this, right? And if you're happy about it because you go, sweet, I got time for that side project thing that I've always wanted to do, then just remember that side project better create some value for the company later, because the finance girl or guy in the company is kind of going like, ooh, you know what? This person's costing us money. We're breaking even on them. How much longer can we do that before it makes sense? So you don't want to be happy when your time gets freed up because of client loss, okay? So as the year kind of goes along, you know, you're break even. Now give me a second and I'll show you what happens when you get really innovative and can do a couple things to help make the numbers look better for your company, which then puts you in an awesome position to talk about your impact on the company for your first year. All right, I'm back again. Let's wrap this up. So you're kind of chugging along, right? You're in towards the tail end of your first year at your company. Remember, we talked about a client loss there, and that happens. Like, that's sucks but true. Like, it happens, right? So what do you do in that time? Remember, we said don't work on a side project instead, unless that side project can fix margin, which is a whole different story. But maybe you ask your BD team if you can help close a deal, right? And now that you're a little bit further along, maybe you helped BD close a deal, and now there's a higher value project that you're currently working on. And let's also say that you're showing your manager and the company that, you know what, you can bank on the fact that I can retain these clients. That was a blip in the radar. That's not typical for you. Typically, you're more, you're gonna hold on to your clients, right? So we can make that assumption. But then let's say all of a sudden, and I got it back here, that in this month, you landed another small project, but you found a way now to work 5 deals at once instead of 4, which now means that the company is making significantly more money on you. Now, what I would recommend is that keep in context of the month of training, the months that they were losing money on you while you were training, and putting that investment in you. And make sure that you're showing the trajectory that at the end of your first year or whatever, you can say, look, if next year I can hold down this workload and the company profits $36,000 next year on me, because I have found ways to upsell my clients, I have found ways to take on another project that maybe most people, they can't take on that much work, but I can, and I'm also not working myself to death, hopefully. Maybe you found some efficiencies in the company where other people could also take on 5 projects because you found an efficiency. That's where the real big raises are. Because then you can say all 10 of these people can now go from $2,000 in profit to $3,000 because we can scale this thing that I've innovated on to save us time and still deliver on client work or whatever. But this is where you can start to actually talk to someone about the impact you've had on the business, the impact you have on the company's business, and ask for a better, ask for an opportunity to get a raise or more time off or 2 months off with the family, whatever it might be that you really want to do that you might not be getting. It always helps to understand the dynamics of your business. So then when you make a pitch, your boss isn't sitting there like, do you honestly think that we just like we sign on this many deals and people just give us those whole checks up front and I'm just sitting on it? No way. You don't want to have your boss ever have to break down for you the basics of how the company makes money, because then what's going to happen is they're kind of not going to listen to the rest of your argument because they're going to say, you don't understand fundamental business. The way that you think my business works is nothing like how it actually does. So go study up on how business works and then maybe come back to me in 3 or 4 months. You do not want that to happen. So I hope this helped all of you make a slightly better case next time when you're asking for a raise. Because if you make a case like this, you'll be much more likely to hopefully get that opportunity. All right? Thanks so much.